Good evening. I'll call the April 14th Cedar Springs Public School Board meeting to order. It's now 6:15. And if you would rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and if we can have a roll call, please, Secretary Slater.
Yes, trustee Bowser. Here. Trustee Patton. Here. Trustee Lund.
Here.
Treasurer Gilmore.
Here.
Secretary Slager. Here. Vice President Schaffner.
Here.
President Reed.
Here. Thank you, and we've established a quorum for tonight's meeting. That brings us to the adoption of the agenda, and I would entertain for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Support.
Any discussion? Having none, Vice President Schaffner.
Yes.
Secretary Slager.
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore.
Yes.
Trustee Lund.
Yes.
Trustee Patton.
Yes.
Trustee Bowser.
Yes.
President Reed. Yes. The agenda is adopted. That brings us to gratitudes. I'll open up the tables for sharing. I'm grateful, Trent, so much you left her restored on north, and thank you for helping that part of the state.
Thank you.
Yay, consumers power.
I'm grateful that students and staff were back on campus today and everyone was safe. Grateful that we did not have any additional days of closure as far as April 14, who knows what the 15th will bring, but we received notification from the state that we do not have to make up those extra 2 days that we had closed for the water situation, and so that's a positive. Just grateful for the continued progress on all of our projects around campus. The contractors are doing an outstanding job. We did lose some bricks off the east face of Hilltop today over the weekend, but I'm grateful that the fascia brick was the only thing that came down. The rest of the building is still apparently intact. We have some engineers that are going to come and verify that.
Grateful for the rest that we had during spring break. Yes, we are back. That's awesome, but just to pause and recognize, I know at least for my kids and family, it was a very nice, just restful time. They needed it. So just shows that there's a lot of hardworking people out there, and just sure, yeah, just grateful for them.
Great. Okay, we'll move forward. Do we have any high school representatives with us? Oh, no, they're coming back from spring break, so we'll see them next meeting. Moves us to consent agenda, and I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So support.
Vice President Schaffner.
Yes.
Secretary Slager.
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore.
Yes.
Trustee Lund.
Yes.
Trustee Patton.
Yes.
Trustee Bowser.
Yes.
President Reed. Yes. Motion carries. That brings us to the closed session portion of our meeting, and I move that the board convene in closed session for the following reason. Pursuant to Section 8H of the Open Meeting Act, MCL 15.268H, the board can meet in closed session to consider material exempt from open discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute and under MCL 15.243(1)G, information or records subject to attorney-client privilege are confidential and exempt from public disclosure. Accordingly, I move that the board convene in closed session to review a written legal opinion, counsel Clark Hill, which PLC, which written legal opinion is exempt from disclosure as privileged and confidential documents pursuant to the attorney-client privilege. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the vote. Vice President Schaffner.
Yes.
Secretary Slager.
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore.
Yes.
Trustee Lund.
Yes.
Trustee Patton.
Yes.
Trustee Bowser.
Yes.
President Reed. Yes. We will move into closed session. Let the record show it is 6:20. Okay, let the record show it is 7 p.m. and I would entertain a motion to go back into open session.
So.
Support. Any discussion? Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Lund,
Yes.
Trustee Patton,
Yes.
Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carries. We will commence with discussion items, and first up, we have 25-26 handbook revision proposals for another read.
Yeah, so the only question that was still remaining out there regarding the handbook proposals as presented in March was the question about the price of the parking stickers for the high school students. The price, the actual cost to the district is $1.60 per sticker when they're purchased in bulk. And those dollars go into the student activity account, which in turn pay for various activities that the students do throughout the year. So whether it be dances, whether it be like senior events, the events for the seniors at the end of the year. So it's, those dollars just go back into support student programming.
Thank you. We don't have that on for action tonight, but it will be coming up in the coming meetings.
Are there any additional questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to discussion item B, high school public address PA system replacement with Colin and Austin and Monty.
How's it going? Welcome back from spring break, everyone. So we're gonna discuss today the replacement of the high school PA system and the clock system, as mentioned. So just to go over some of the current things that we're seeing with this system here. There's just been consistent issues with both the clock in the building and the PA intercoms in the building that have frequent repairs and or adjustments from both the operations team here and some outside vendors. We've had repeated outages over the last few years in the building itself. There's also multiple locations in the building that just don't have adequate coverage. We'll speak on those a little bit later. The bathrooms are one space in particular. And then currently the PA system that's in the building doesn't have the ability to zone. And what zoning means is, let's say we have, so this week is a perfect week, for example, we have testing throughout the building with MSTEP and PSAT. So if we do zones, if the 400 hallway is testing and the other three are not, we could turn off the announcements in that area, and then we can still have them go throughout the other zones. So the current system doesn't have that ability, so that's one of the things so we put on the RFP, and that was one of the things in our RFP in particular. So what that covered was the replacement of those clocks and the PA system throughout the building, classrooms, offices, hallways, large group spaces like the gym, and then the exterior of the building. Also, the ability to display visual notifications and emergency messages. Again, Colin will cover a little bit of that on what those look like and what we mean by that on one of the further slides. Integration into our current phone emergency response and our door systems. So some of the systems we've talked to all of you about in the past few meetings with our door access and stuff like that. This would tie in case of emergency events. And then removal of the existing hardware and the cable. So respondents to the RFP, we had 4 different vendors respond to our RFP. We had Amcom Incorporated, and their response was $387,985.25. We had Moss, which was $372,879.68. And we had Electromedia Inc., which was $354,037. And then finally we had Parkway, and they came in at $266,463.
So we're reviewing all these other responses we got to the RFP. The main goal is to make sure it does everything our existing system does. So it integrates into our Blue Point system, it integrates into the door system, and just all of our various systems that the current Bogan can do. So it can replace and fully take over everything that we have today. But we also kind of wanted to see what we could advance. Obviously, safety and security has changed quite a bit since this system was installed about 25 years ago. What new standards can we implement, and just how do those look, and what's realistic for us? And one of the biggest just coverage things that we didn't include in the RFP, but after looking at the responses, we noticed is the bathrooms have never had coverage in this building. Same thing with the stairwells and some small offices. So outside of the RFP, after we read through the responses, we do want to add those as well. In some of those areas, like the hallway or in the bathrooms and the stairwells, you will hear some announcements from the hallway. But just to make sure that in an emergency situation, if doors get closed for fire, for any event, there's good solid coverage. You can hear all announcements in every space in the building. So after reviewing all of the responses, we are recommending Parkway. They are implementing a CareHawk solution. They are the cheapest of all of the responses. The big difference between Parkway and all the other ones and why they are so much cheaper is they're going with a modern clock PA combo in all common areas, or all like classrooms, offices, and stuff like that. But they are using standard speakers in the hallway. So instead of having IP-based or network-based speakers in the hallway, we're just going with standard amplifiers and speaker wire for the hallway, which makes sense after we reviewed it. And we are going to make some tweaks to kind of adjust it that I'll talk about shortly. But it also, there are a few other benefits we noticed. Most of the other systems had recurring fees, so every single year we'll have to pay a $5,000 subscription. Not ideal if we have a system that we need running 24/7, 365 under any circumstance. We don't want to potentially just someone forgot to renew a subscription, it was on a card that got declined, or just there's no need to have regular meetings on such a critical piece of infrastructure. I guess talking a little bit about the actual devices. So here we have kind of a sample of the various things we'll see. Your standard classroom will have this blue intercom. It's about a 10-inch screen with a built-in speaker and the strobe lights at the top. So any of your key announcements will go over that. You can display messages dynamically over that screen. And when that messages aren't going, it'll just be a standard clock interface. So that's really nice. You can also replace all of our clock systems throughout the building, which is original currently to the building when it was constructed. Up in the top corner, the larger just pure screen, that's gonna be for your bigger areas, your gym. They will be behind protective barriers, but the 22-inch screen doesn't have a speaker built into it because in those areas we need a little bit more powerful speakers. So they will be external systems, but it gives you a 22-inch screen to display those messages in the clock. And then for hallways, you'll have a similar to this top right one. The clock ones in the hallways will have the arm on the side, just so it sticks out and kind of matches our current style. But it will be a similar idea. It has the flashes to get your attention, or if the hallways are loud during passing time, it'll grab your attention and then look at the clock for any messages, and then they will display just standard time when messages aren't present. So with recommending Parkway and some of the adjustments we want to make, so taking Parkway's base bid of $266,000, making the adjustments to get the additional speakers for the bathrooms and stairwells, and then doing some additional fine tuning because they aren't doing IP based or network based screens in the hallways. We wanted to kind of split up a little bit differently so we can still zone the hallways appropriately. That had a little bit of an extra cost to it as well, which brings us to a plan total that we got from them, $21,150 on top of their base bid to get our total project costs that we are looking for. Are there any questions we can answer?
Yeah, where's this funding coming from?
So I believe
So it's section 31AA from the state, so it's for school safety and mental health
So mental health.
Well,
and school safety.
will all of it be covered on the other?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we originally projected as being about a $300,000 project, so of the $340,000 that we've been awarded, we've kind of earmarked $300,000, so this is a little bit less than what we originally projected.
How much is going toward the mental health of that?
The balance, so we'll be holding various trainings over the summer.
Just thinking about the system,
I'm guessing that the conductor is not either wired in a way where you can reuse it or speakers aren't adequate, like, it looks like total replacement and removal of the system, that's because the existing hardware is not
Yeah, so I did,
adaptable.
yeah, I should cover that a little bit better with the modification in that additional planned adjustments when we went back to Parkway and kind of reevaluated to add the additional things we did, including the RFP. Originally, they were talking about replacing every speaker in the hallway. After we reviewed it a little bit more, we are going to reuse those speakers. But in most other situations, in order to get that digital messaging for emergencies in the classroom, it would be a complete replacement in most areas outside of hallways where we will use existing speakers, but they will run completely new wiring. Because a large part of the current issue we have with the PA system is the wiring isn't sufficient. It's been patched onto too many times as the building's been constructed and just needs to be
Yeah, there'll be a few office spaces that the existing PA speaker would be taken from a classroom, but to those offices.
So reusing where it's appropriate, but the majority of it is a clean new system.
Thank
you. Any other questions we can answer?
If we approve this tonight, when are you looking at installation?
Installation would be this summer if we can get it approved tonight.
Any questions or wonders? We have it on for action.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to discussion item C, Beach Elementary School classroom furniture purchase, round 2, Mod.
All right, as Heidi just mentioned, this is the 2025 round for the Beach Elementary furniture purchase. So just to kind of refresh you, last April, the board approved the purchase of classroom desks, chairs, and teacher workstations. The reason we broke this out into two rounds of purchases is the first round we used ESSER $3 to fund those purchases. And we had until September 30th of 2024 to expend those dollars. So we purchased those, placed them in the existing classrooms over the summer. And then but we did not want to purchase everything because that would be even more that we have to move from existing classrooms into the new space. So we held off on purchasing the classroom bookshelves and some of the kind of resource room and auxiliary spaces. So for this round, Diane and Vic worked very closely with Jen Cook, the principal for Beach Elementary, as well as various staff members throughout the building to kind of gauge what they were looking for. They also worked with Alyssa Ditta from GMB, who is GMB's interior designer and has assisted the district in the past purchases of various furniture packages. Obviously, working with Jen and the staff, we took their feedback into account as we made the selections for these furniture purchases. So as I mentioned, we are looking for some inclusive seating. This will primarily go into some of our special education areas, resource room, as well as speech path rooms, and ASD as well. A large part of the purchase is for the art room as well as the media center. So new chairs and tables for the media center, as well as bookcases. And we don't have a ton of office furniture that we have to purchase because the If you walk into the new principal's office, you'll see the desks are built in, similar to what we have at here at the high school, at the middle school, as well as at Red Hawk. But they do need some filing cabinets, a new nursing bed, and a small group teachers' desks. So here's a list of the kind of overall items that we're looking to purchase. So that we are purchasing based off of contract pricing, so the bidding process has already been completed for us. So the majority of the items are being purchased through Custer. And then we have 4 other vendors that we'll be looking to utilize. The total purchase price that we're proposing is $176,364.81. We originally, a year ago, we had projected our round 2 budget to be $230,457. So we are coming in about $54,000 less than what we projected last year. A large part of that is what we're expending in the media center, and the office space is quite a bit less than what we projected last April, as well as installation and shipping costs are significantly less.
Any questions or wonders about that?
Under the notes on the page up, you have say under budget 115,000. Are you adding extra tables? Is that why you said 50,000?
So when we started we budgeted 600,000 for rounds 1 and 2, and then we modified our round 2 down to 230,000.
Okay.
So that 115 is our total projected expenditure compared to that 600,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Need money. Moving forward, your trails playground proposal with Scott and Monty.
So the next item on the agenda is really the extension of the work that we've already done in terms of proposing new features for Cedar View's playground, as well as enhancing and supporting new features at Beach's playground. The difference, if you recall from our meeting back in March, was that we were going to take a different look at Cedar Trails. Currently, they have 2 playground sections, so you can see in your document in board book and as well on the screen, the spaces to the right and to the left of that star in the middle. That's where we currently have features established for students. They're 2 separate spaces in 2 different parts of the green space. And our wonder was, what could we do to enhance the experience for our students by creating 1 playground space that would be shared by all students uniformly? And so really it was about location and how can we get creative and use the entirety of space out there to provide a better, more robust experience for our students. And so what we worked, Diane and Vic and the team at Trails, teachers, as well as input from students, put together a proposal working with the same team that we use for the beach playground and the Cedar View playground to create this new collection of features that includes some features that are new, as well as some features that are existing on the Cedar Trails playground that we are planning to reuse and incorporate into the new space. So on tile 3, it's a color view of this same feature. These are just kind of ballpark ideas in terms of location for things. So we may move some things around based on how everything fits together with the existing features. But this is kind of the ballpark of how you can see how the playground will be extended out from that east end or the south east facing wing of the building, and providing equal access from both of the larger classroom wings. So the next slide is kind of an overhead view showing how that space will look. Obviously, in the next slide, Marty, please, number 5, we don't have the trees in the background, but again, it just kind of gives you a visual as to how the space will lay out. One thing you'll notice in between the two spaces is a green area, a green zone, and on each end of that, we have some canopy features that would provide shade for students during the day. So we thought that that would be a good thing to incorporate as well into the design. If you go to slide 6, now you're getting more of a focused view on some of the new features that we'll be adding. So this is a feature with multiple slides. You'll see that there is a swing set in the background that would be incorporated in. We also hope to reuse some of the swing sets that we currently have at Trails, just to provide students with more access to those types of items. You jump to feature or slide 7. Again, some of those climbing structures, those balance structures that help students at that age develop more mobile dexterity and balance and strength. Those features can also be used in a classroom setting. If teachers wanted to bring their students out for a reading activity, that would be a gathering place for classrooms to come when the playgrounds aren't being used for recreation. In Title 8 or slide 8, you'll see a feature that actually was a part of the original plan that I shared back in March from Cedar Trails. That's an inclusive feature, so you'll see there's a ramp that goes up to the swinging mechanism. That ramp provides access for students who have an aerial wheelchair. So it gives those students an opportunity to engage on features as well. You'll see the flowers, the features down in front. Those are, again, more accessible features that can be used for creating sound and creating some other types of experiences for students. If you jump to slide 9, again, you'll see a different viewpoint. You'll see the swings in the back. You'll see a climbing feature with a space for students to use as kind of a fort in the foreground. Another area for students to use for balance and dexterity, but also a space that can be used by classroom teachers if they wanted to bring students outside. Move to slide 10. That's one of the features that's currently in place at Cedar Trails, but it's still in good shape. And so our plan is to repurpose this structure into the new playground area. The same thing goes for slide 11. Again, all of those, the slide is solid, all the platforms are solid. That's still a very usable structure, and so we'll incorporate that in. Slide 12 is the Gaga pit that we installed a year or 2 years ago. We would incorporate that into the new structure and the new layout. We would just move it to another location. The next slide, 13, is another larger feature, a climbing feature that is on the playground. There's the structure in the foreground, but also kind of behind that welcome sign in the distance, you can see another climbing structure. So we see that as really being a nice addition to the overall playground experience for our students. That's what slide 14 is. It just focuses on that kind of climbing structure. So you see a lot of the climbing features are different now than they were 25 years ago or 30 years ago. It's no longer just metal bars in a dome that kids are climbing around on. And so it's providing them with some different, almost like a climbing wall type of experience that's a little bit safer for them. So the overall projected cost of this program is $299,000 or $299,929.60. That's in the slide deck that you have, and then there's a breakdown of individual pricing as the secondary attachment under this same agenda item. And so it just shows, what the overall plan is from game time. All of these prices are considered under the My Deal program, and so they don't require additional bids. Game Time has already done the bidding process and earned a statewide bid. And so that way their equipment is covered under that programming, so we would not have to give additional pricing. If we can approve, if there are no questions from the board table, if you're comfortable with the plan, if approved this evening, we would be able to commit to Game Time and get this playground installed during the summer at the same time that the beach playground and the Cedar View playground is being installed. If there's some questions from the board table, we need to push. We may still be able to do it in May, but if not, we can do our best to make it happen. So ultimately, it's about making sure that your questions are answered in the process. Again, thanks to the team at Trails, they did a visit on a very cold and snowy day over to Sparta to take a look at one of their playgrounds at one of their elementary schools. They had two playgrounds like we have, and they merged it into one. And so our teachers, Vic, Diane, Scott Carpenter, went over and just talked to their team about what's it look like and how does having one larger space flow with the day. And our team felt good about what they heard from the team of Sparta. And so that helped them feel a lot more confident that this would be a good space for our students moving forward. And it is kind of neat, this isn't equipment that you buy and then you buy new equipment in 5 years. This is a 25-year space, which is pretty exciting to think about. So questions on the playground, the features, the budget?
I like the location piece because of where it was before, all those classrooms, if they weren't at lunch or recess, they could see all that activity. So then you had those lines. So by moving it where we're moving it, it kind of moves it out of that vision. So I appreciate that.
So we're taking the old equipment and moving it to the centralized location. What's the plan for those old existing spaces?
Vic and the team have a great space, green spaces, with lines for soccer fields, football fields, kickball. It will actually be able to work the grades so that the drainage water can actually flow off those areas, because right now, anytime it rains, it becomes very sloppy out in that area. So by redoing the slope, redoing the grade a little bit, it will actually make the entire area more functional. But we really want to create some spaces for, again, students to play large group games, for phys ed, for classes to be able to come out and enjoy the outside, occasionally take little breaks during the day. So definitely we'll be utilizing those spaces to maximize the experience.
And I'm not sure if you can answer this question or not, but I'm just kind of curious if there was a vision for how that green space in the middle would be used.
I'll pitch that to Diane and Vic. Thoughts on the green space initially?
So the middle green space was given a place for the curved road to be able to visually control both sides, and then to be able to control kids that don't want to be out there, they can be in the green space with them in between the playground. And right now, where you've seen the old playgrounds on the north part of the playground, it's pretty flat, it's 2-3% grade, but it's just a mud pit all the time. So there's drains out there, but the water can't get to it. So it would give them a great opportunity for kickball, soccer, football, just to run around. Same way with the middle, they can do a little bit in the middle off to the green space. They can play soccer, they can play a little football, play tag, without losing focus of where they're at. So.
It was the largest request they had for us when we took them the original plans from the teachers was how, if I'm a kindergartner, do I look out and understand where I'm supposed to be? So the goal was how do we give them that visualization as they're walking out the end of the building, that's my spot.
We'll also have some seating features and tables in that area for students to do art, or students to draw, or students to write. So again, trying to really maximize that outdoor space.
Like, is there a warranty?
Warranty on equipment?
Yes, there is. It depends, so I can't answer it with a number because it depends on exactly what we choose, if that makes sense. So they have a limited warranty on everything they offer, but different pieces have different. So once we make the final choice, we can provide.
Thank you.
This would be included in the bond funding.
Okay. Thank you for clarification. Okay. We'll move on to the Board of Education operating procedures update proposal, and that's Scott and I. And
So what you have in board book, Heidi and I sat down before spring break and just walked through that document. We walked through some of the documents that Frank used during our orientation workshop that we did back in January. We also incorporated some other documents that we had either from MASB or documents that we were currently using. Again, what we're trying to do is create almost like a staff handbook, but for the Board of Education to use as a reference that helps to guide our work, but also then ties it back into board policy. So what this draft does is incorporate some of the questions and suggestions that we had from when we last talked about this in February. I incorporated some of those things in. It's not on for action. It's a beefy document. It's 17 pages. And so it is something that's important that we kind of chew on a little bit and think through. And it'll be a work in progress, you know, similar to our student handbooks. You know, we do an annual review process of those documents. This also would be one of those documents that we would just continue to take a look at, you know, as we do our work and we'll, you know, encounter new situations and new things, new information. We may find that we want to incorporate some of those things into our handbook or our procedures manual. But again, just again, a work in progress. If you'll scroll down, noting on page 3, in the previous version that you looked at, all of those items were numbered, and there was some question about, well, does the number represent something that's more important than another item on the list? What I did was I made all of the lists alphabetical, and I did a bullet point instead of making them numeric. So that way, if all of these items are important to us, one doesn't have any greater standing over any other. So I thought that would be just a simple approach, and I carried that through in all of the lists of items. So you'll see that throughout the document. Scrolling down, Jason had made the suggestion regarding accountability. There was a larger explanation of accountability in our previous document. In the original draft that you looked at, that was shortened. One of the things we were trying to do is have fewer words, but the suggestion was made under that section that maybe the original language would be helpful for clarification. So we included that in the entirety of the accountability piece in there. Again, down on page 5, you'll see another bulleted list versus a numbered list. On page 6, you'll see duties and responsibilities. That was a document that came from MASB. So just kind of helps clarify what are the duties and responsibilities of the trustees on the Board of Education, what are the duties and responsibilities of the superintendent. So just trying to help provide clarity around those items. And again, that's a fluid process. Moving down, the other changes come into play. On page 11, I incorporated language from our current board superintendent communication document and just provided a list of, you know, these are the expectations that the Board of Education can expect from the superintendent. These are expectations that the superintendent can expect from the Board of Education. Again, just trying to provide clarity for that work. The other thing that we included that we thought might be helpful on page 12 is many times parents, people will, approach you at Meyer or at Nono's when you're picking up pizza and ask a question. This is just a guideline in terms of if a parent approaches you about this subject, then you've got an easy line of, okay, let me get back with you on that. That's always a classic line. And then when you do get back to them on that, it just helps to provide a protocol for where you direct them next. Because it's just not possible for the 7 of you to be the go-between for the parents of 3,000 students. A normal situation is fine, but that could easily become a very overwhelming task if everyone just expects you to provide all of those answers to all the questions that they have. The bulk of the remaining portion of the document they're just things that we incorporated in from the previous view. Those were the new things that we incorporated into this draft. So again, we'll revisit this in May and follow up with any questions that you may have. If there are any questions that you have tonight, I can make notes of them, and then we can address them either tonight or address them in our board meeting in May.
Questions for me at this time?
All right, I think a little bit of one-stop shopping, but then it starts to feel overwhelming, but we'll get there. All right, we'll move forward then with the summer 2025 bond construction project proposals.
So we had a bid opening 2 weeks ago. Triangle Construction was on site and helped do a public bid opening and a bid review process. After they reviewed all the bids, then Steve Dademan and the team at Triangle actually set up interviews with the contractors who had submitted the bids to make sure that they understood the full scope of the work and also had the capacity in their schedule to conduct the work and finish on time for us for the start of the 25-26 school year. The work was very much like the work that we've done in the past with Triangle, where they put all the bids out. They do the work of reviewing the bids, and then they do the investigation and the interviews for the bids, and then they put together a proposal for us to consider or for you to consider. Prior to that, they had done a projected budget for the scope of all of the work, and their initial projected budget compared to where the bids actually came in. The bids actually came in $452,000 under their projected budget. And that's again a reflection of the positive relationship that we have with vendors in the community and just the outstanding commitment that local trades people, local excavation companies, local companies have with the district, and their willingness to really put a reasonable number on the table so that we can maximize our projects relative to the bond dollars that we have available to us. So the collective body of work that we're looking at for tonight, really two primary locations for this work. One is Cedar View Elementary School. In Cedar View, you'll see an expansion, the bottom of the diagram, an expansion of parking behind the building. And that will serve both the staff at Cedar View, but as well as it will serve our baseball softball complex for activities and events after school. That was one of the things that we have acknowledged, that there's really limited parking back there for events. And so we see this being a benefit. And then also for cross country in the fall, parents and spectators will be able to park in that area for events that we have after school and on weekends at Cedar View. We're also looking to add one additional row in the front of Cedar View on the far north end of the diagram, and also just improve traffic flow around the building and around for the drop off and pickup space. increasing access out to the main road as well by adding another drive to the north and to the east on that site. So instead of having one drive in, which also is the drive out at Cedarview, we'll have one drive coming in that's an in and out, and then we'll have a second drive coming in that's also an in and out, just to help provide better flow of traffic around that building. And then the other collection of projects is at the high school, and that one includes the tennis courts, which as you can see in the diagram, just above the number box, and then, oh, sorry, that's the tennis court structure. And then the other document, the other image is of the parking. The big thing with this is moving some of the parking that we are currently have along the east edge of the parking lot and along the north edge of the parking lot. We would move that over into a new lot, which is basically would be out where the hill is right now. The idea for that is it gets students closer to the building, number one, which enhances safety. One of the things, if you listen to law enforcement officers, you know, they don't like the elevation. If there was an intruder, someone could sit up there and it would be a significant strategic advantage if someone had ill intent on our students that's higher ground. The other thing that it would do is it would enable us to create a berm on the north end of the parking lot that would provide some privacy and some separation, sound deadening as well as visual for our families that live along 17 Mile, that their back property line borders our northern property line. So we see benefit to that, as well as moving. There would be no parking right adjacent to the fences at the tennis court. Right now, you can parallel park right up to the, perpendicular park right up against the fences at the tennis court. So we see a safety enhancement there as well by providing another zone of separation between vehicular traffic and where our students might be spending time, or students and spectators might be enjoying the contest after school. Am I missing anything, Marty?
Tennis courts expanded a little bit as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
That was another reason
Yeah,
for that.
thank you. So the tennis courts, if you jump to slide 3, the tennis courts currently are all there are 4 courts all together on the north side, 4 courts all together on the south side. You'll see in this visual, we break those courts up into 4 quadrants with spectator viewing both in a north-south line with seating available for spectators, as well as an east-west line that would provide space for coaches and athletes to be. We wouldn't see spectators lining up on the end lines there, but that would be a space during matches for coaches and athletes to gather. This proposal also looks and creates 2 kind of shade structures or sun structures. One is in the middle of all 4 courts, and then one is on the south end. You'll see another box in the center, kind of around that pavilion area. There will be some seating and some high top tables for teams and families to be able to gather after events. You know, beyond the actual court perimeter. So we really see that as being both an athlete friendly zone, but also a spectator friendly zone. These courts would be designed with post tension construction, so it's a more lively court, and definitely a better construction process, more long lasting for tennis courts in terms of current trends when you're installing those. Anything else we're missing? Or any questions that you have? So in addition to the visuals, there is a report from Triangle in their recommendation for the awarding of bids. Again, you'll see that The total scope, the budget projection was $3.69 million. The actual cost of the project came in at $3.24 million, so that was under budget by $450,000. And then if you jump down to the next page of that, it actually looks at individual bids and the contractors that we're recommending to receive the bid. So for concrete, masonry, general trades, electrical, the site and building earthwork, the asphalt and paving, and then the actual tennis court surfacing. I think of all of the bids, we had several individuals submitting bids. The only number that we only had one vendor for was the surfacing of the tennis courts. And that's the Racket Sports Group, and that's all we do is surface tennis courts. Yeah. So questions, wonders?
This is summer.
It is gonna be a busy summer. But they'll actually, if approved this evening, they're actually gonna start moving the contractor that is being recommended for earthwork and utilities, which is Dean's Excavating. If they can start moving some of the dirt off the hill now, they'll actually cut $70,000 off their proposal, because they can use it on another location. It's amazing how much dirt, how much value dirt has in the world of construction. But it's just, again, little things like that, that because of the relationships that are established and the strength within this community between contractors and the district, it's really working to our favor.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to discussion item G, finance update with Mod.
So we have our standard documents uploaded. Does anybody have any questions on what was uploaded? One thing I do kind of want to point out, we're kind of in the thick of budgeting season for the state school aid fund. Next month will be what is called the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference. We like to call it the CREC. Essentially, it is a national and state economists from U of M. They present to the state's budget office, and they use economic forecasts to project what the state revenues, where they think they will land for this fiscal year, and then projecting out into next year. Then the state, the legislators, governor's office use those projections to create the upcoming fiscal year budget. So I believe that the next CREC, it's in May. I believe it will, the date hasn't been announced yet, but I believe it will be after our May board meeting. So I will give you an update. But just kind of put it out on your radar. For the January CREC, the economists, they felt that any potential tariffs that were put in place would not really have any significant impact in their forecast. They felt that it would take a while to implement those tariffs, so they were not projecting any impact for the upcoming budget cycle. It sounds like that they will likely be adjusting their forecast. And so I will report back in either May or June once we have that information. And then the final thing to point out, you know, a lot of people assume that the school aid funds, the revenues that go into the school aid fund are primarily based off of property taxes. That property taxes is a significant part of the revenue that is used to fund schools. But the primary revenues actually come from sales tax, income tax, and use tax. Those three components comprise about 70% of the revenues that the state then takes and puts into the school aid fund. Those three items are pretty subject to recession. So obviously, probably heard that, the talks of recession are starting to make the news, so we're monitoring that closely. Usually for schools, there's a 1 to 2 year lag after recession hits. That will hit the school's budgets 1 to 2 years after the recession has started. So if there were to be a recession, we're looking more at the 26, 27, 27, 28 school years that could potentially impact our budgets. Cedar Springs is fortunate that we do have a very healthy fund balance, so we will be able to kind of navigate those waters if it does come to that. But I wanted to put it on your radar now, so just something to consider as we move forward.
It's interesting that school budgets lag behind both the dips in the economy, but they also lag behind the high points of the economy. So we have a little bit of a buffer. It helps us on the lead end. It hurts us on the tail end, because when the economy starts thriving, oftentimes we're not feeling that in districts yet. But it's just part of the cycle.
Yeah, and these funds are specific to the general fund, so our general operations doesn't impact our bond projects or the funds that we have remaining in our sinking fund. It is specific to general fund, general operations.
I have a question about going back, to the bond proposal. On your spreadsheet here, what bond is that coming out of? Is that series 1 or series 2?
We're in series 2.
Okay.
We finished series 1. That included the addition to the high school, the work at the middle school, the work at Red Hawk, some of the paving, but those were the big projects that came out of series 1. Series 2 includes the new addition on the east end of the high school, the work at Beach Elementary School, then this project.
See, that project was what, 3 million something? Is that spread out between the high school and the beach? Is that how you're doing the bond? I'm just trying to understand, sorry.
No, you're good.
So it's a separate project coming up.
Okay, because it says remaining in the high school is 1.8, so would that we'd have to steal from another school technically?
No, the budgeting process is a little bit fluid in bond work in order to maximize the efficiency and getting the greatest use of projects. When we originally went to the voters for approval in August of 2020, it was not on our radar to replace the tennis courts. Right. But the deterioration of those surfaces over the last 4 years, we realized, we can't not replace those surfaces and still have our athletes playing on a safe space. And so savings from other projects have enabled us to shift those monies over to the tennis court, to fund the tennis court project. So we'll be under budget on the project at Beach. We've been under budget on this addition. The high school work actually also created this space, created the cafeteria. There was a lot of work done here during the summer of, was it just during the summer of 2021 and in 2022? Yeah. So, that was a big part of that series 1 budget. We did close all those funds out though. So series 1 is essentially closed out. Now we're really living in series 2.
Okay. And then, going back to the beach furniture, when the bond project started, we had budgeted 600,000. But we really will only be charging of that 600 that was initially allocated for beach furniture, it'll only be 176,000 because obviously the budgets were put together prior to COVID, and then as ESSER dollars were released, we used some ESSER dollars to provide flexible classroom furniture. So some of those ESSER dollars were used to purchase the classroom furniture for beach that originally was budgeted in bond.
Alright, thank you.
It's a lot like our budget, your budgets at home. You know, you may have $250 budgeted per month for groceries. But some months you might spend 300, some months you might spend 200. It's just important, you can't go over the budget. You can't spend more than what you have budgeted for.
And just to clarify, the 3 projects are included in that for the cost. 3 projects being parking here, tennis courts, and Cedar View
Yes.
parking.
Yeah, and then that would leave us with one final body of work that would be completed next summer, and that would be the final repaving of the roads and surfaces throughout campus, as well as a reconfiguration at Cedar Trails for their handoff and pickup line. We were running into some hiccups. We initially had that on the docket for completion this summer. But then there were some questions about infringement on a wetland. And we just didn't want to take the risk of being delayed because we didn't have Eagle permissions. And so we couldn't afford to not have that ready. So we decided to push pause on that body of work. We knew we were going to do the roads next summer anyway, because then all the heavy equipment is off campus. And so we just thought, let's bundle that together. We'll actually be going to bid with those projects in September or October of this fall. So we can get primary positioning for our excavation and our site work and paving for next summer. So it just really helps us be in a good strategic position to bring those projects home next year. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle on the board. And that's why it's great, you know, to work. We meet weekly with Triangle and GMB and just are constantly pushing on each other, pushing on thinking to maximize the return on the investment for our community on this set of projects.
Appreciate that, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We will move forward. Discussion item H, Kent Intermediate Association of School Boards, KIASB.
So as a member of Cedar Springs Public Schools Board of Education, we are also a member of the Kent Intermediate Association of School Boards. The Kent Intermediate Association of School Boards has 3 annual meetings. They do one in the fall, one in February, and then they do one in the spring. They're usually held at the Kent ISD. Students from the Culinary Arts program provide the meal. They have speakers that come in, so it's really a neat night to celebrate both student achievement, but also celebrate the work of Board of Education members such as yourselves throughout the county. Those meetings don't just happen on their own. They have an executive board who meets 5 times a year to help plan those 3 then association meetings for the entire county over the course of the year. So currently the association executive board has 2 open seats. Andrea Hadel who's a board member of the Board of Education from the Kent ISD. Her seat is open, and then Beth Milanowski, who was a board member for East Grand Rapids, that seat is open. Beth is no longer on the board at East Grand Rapids, therefore she cannot run again for her seat on the executive board. But Andrea is still a member of the Kent ISD board, and she is interested in continuing to serve the overall association as a member of the executive board moving forward. So tonight, you're being asked to vote for, there's a ballot included we have to submit the ballot, by April 30. So if we feel good about, choice tonight, you can act on the motion. If we need to pause, then we can either have a special meeting or we can, not include our vote or our voice, in the process this year. So the ballot itself is the second attachment, under this provision. It simply says, to choose one of the following candidates for the Kent ISD, or excuse me, the Kent Intermediate Association of School Boards, and you have one choice, and that's Andrea, who is the only individual running, for re-election on the position. So that's that permission, or that's that position, and if any of you are interested in, developing relationships with other members of, other Board of Education throughout the county, this is a great opportunity for you to engage in that work. And the Kent Intermediate Association of School Boards also helps to pay for, they also sponsor individuals, to attend the national conference in Washington. So, that's how April was, they supported her tuition to attend that conference. So it really is a neat way to get involved. So that would be the request for this evening, that, we take action and submit a name for vote for April 30, or by April 30, 2025.
Question. If there's two open seats and only one person running, how's that second seat filled?
They'll have an appointment. Yeah. It would be just like if we had a vacancy, on the board, then the other board members would appoint. They would seek first individuals who were interested, and then, and out of that group of individuals who responded, they would interview and then select someone from that process. Yeah. And they can also run with one person short. I don't know specifically what their bylaws are, but they would have a set of bylaws that they would follow, just like we do. So there's still time for you to get your name on the list, if that's what your question, if that's what you're asking.
All right, we'll see. On for action, we'll see where that goes. The last discussion item is the Kent Intermediate School District biennial election.
So this is, something that we see every 2 years. This is actually the, for a seat on the Board of Education with the Kent ISD. Really what, we need to do with this piece of, work is twofold. One, we need to identify a primary representative from the Cedar Springs Public School Board of Education to actually cast the vote, on behalf of the Cedar Springs Public School Board of Education in June. So you have to attend a meeting and cast a vote. And then we also have to identify an alternate for that work. I know that I've served as that member who attended the meeting and cast the vote. Matt has done it in the past. And so one of the things that you'll be asked to do in May, at our May meeting, is identify a member of our team who is willing to go down to the Kent ISD for a meeting in June and actually cast the vote on behalf of the board. The other thing that you'll be asked to do in May is actually, identify from a group of individuals who have expressed interest in serving on the Kent Intermediate School Board, to actually identify individuals from that list of interested parties and support them in a vote. So it's a little bit of a wonky situation. You have to present the candidates after May 5, but then you also have to have the election or the ballot cast by the end of May. You have got to take action as a board, and so it puts us in a little bit of a pickle because we only have one meeting in May. So in the past, what we've done is had a special meeting, either the 3rd week in May or the 4th week in May, just to complete that process. I was in a meeting today with Ron Gorman, who's the superintendent from the Kent ISD, and one of the other superintendents asked him if there was any leniency that they could give us so that we didn't have to pull our boards together for a special meeting in May, because several districts only have one meeting in May, and so he was going to look into that and then get back to us. So perhaps we can, see the candidates in May, identify who we're going to have cast the vote, and then have our second opportunity to review candidates in June, and then actually take action at that June meeting. But I'll keep you up to date on it. So if you're thinking you want to go to a meeting at the Kent ISD in June to cast a ballot, maybe you can raise your hand when we meet in May to talk about that.
Here a second.
I think it's June 2nd, yeah.
At 6 p.m. on this one.
And you have to drive by some pretty good restaurants to get to the Kent ISD, so turn it into a dream date with your special person if you're interested.
All right, we will see that again, see how that turns out. That concludes our discussion items for this evening. That brings us to the portion of our meeting where we have public comment, where the board would hear from the public. If anyone has registered to speak, we would listen for 3 minutes. We won't be following up today at the meeting. Mr. Smith will be following up. So please discuss, do we have anyone registered for public comment?
No, we do not.
Having no public comment speakers come forth, we will close public comment and move on to our action items for this evening. We have first up for action, the high school public address PA system replacement. I would entertain a motion.
I would move to go with recommendation of Parkway for $287,000 and I'm sorry, $287,613,000.
Second. Any discussion?
During our discussion portion, we were kind of talking about that particular area of section 31AA. So while we were meeting, I looked up a memorandum of interpretation from the state of Michigan Department of Education, and under that section, it does talk about special education and it talks about safety. And one of those items under safety is safety infrastructure, so it squarely fits in there. Not to second guess, but just as a validation as a result of our earlier discussion.
Thank you for that. I do think we know, we probably heard stories from things happening throughout the day that the system does go down and it takes a long time to fix. Get some, and they're fearing that it might not be fixed. It's at the end of its useful life. Yeah, I'll vote. Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Lund,
No.
Trustee Patton,
Yes.
Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carries. Action item B, Beach Elementary School Classroom Furniture Purchase Round 2. I would entertain a motion.
Someone.
So I'm going to clarify, I didn't say as presented, I'm going to clarify for Custer Furniture. Watch me on the amounts here, $1,076, $364.81.
There is, yeah.
There's
Okay.
no.
As presented with multiple vendors. Sorry, Barb.
No,
Okay.
I have them all listed, so it'll be in the minutes.
So your motion was as presented
Yes.
and you support this.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good discussion.
And discussion.
Just to further clarify, the total dollar amount, so we can go
Was
there, there's
different,
multiple
yeah.
vendors. The $176,364.81.
I'll do the vote. Vice President Schaffner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Lund,
Yes.
Trustee Patton,
Yes.
Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carries. Action item C, the Cedar Trails Playground Proposal. I would entertain a motion for as presented.
I would love to make that motion for $299,929.60 for game time
Thank you. Second. Support by April. Any discussion?
I think they've needed this for a while, and I'm very excited to share this as a sign too.
Call the vote, Vice President Schopner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Lund,
Yes.
Trustee Patton,
Yes.
Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carries. Action item D, the summer 2025 bond construction project proposals. I would entertain a motion for as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion?
Again, very excited to have these 3 different projects. I think the Cedar View one is, it's been much needed for years. Excited that the cross country will have some parking. Yeah, so looking forward to it.
Great. Now call for vote, Vice President Schopner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Lund,
Yes.
Trustee Patton,
Yes.
Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carried. The last action item for this evening is Kent Intermediate Association of School Boards Board of Directors ballot. And I would entertain a motion for as presented, the ballot with Andrea Hadel wanting to continue that work.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Vice President Schopner,
Yes.
Secretary Slager,
Yes.
Treasurer Gilmore,
Yes.
Trustee Lund,
No.
Trustee Patton,
Yes.
Trustee Bowser,
Yes.
President Reed, yes, motion carries. That brings us to the communication portion of our meeting. And for the Board of Education, I would just remind everybody that Mackinac Island is going to be the place for MASB meetings in May. I have attended there before. It's nice how that goes. So if anybody's interested, it's good trip and training. That's all I have. You have all the other communications that I have.
Yeah, may I add on to that as well.
Okay.
So that was at Mission Point, I believe. So it's awesome place.
Yep.
I don't know if they still have rooms, but there's other places on that room.
Yep.
And we do, right now it's the 75th year for MESB, so I think they're still providing $750 scholarship, kind of whatever you want to call it.
Perfect.
For board members, and I think that falls under this. So
Okay. Good.
I'd like to make, I'm still looking for a special education update. Don't know if we can put that on the agenda sometime, May, June.
We can, I just need clarification as to what you want in that update or what, I guess it's, we wanted to make sure that it's the visions of the board versus of the individual member of the board.
That's fine. I've talked to other board members and they
Yeah.
stated that we used to get it regularly, yearly, annually. So
Yeah.
if it's something that we've gotten in the end, let's see when it will be coming up next.
So noted. All right.
I sent an email to the board today, self-reporting an omission of consideration for policy 4110, which is the conflict of interest policy. We had, in response to a parent communication regarding the experience that they were having when they would go to Cedar Trails to pick up their child after school or during the day. She just indicated it wasn't a very welcoming space to sit in that front lobby, and I went over there and I said, wow, you're right, it's really dark in here, and it's not a very welcoming place for parents or for students. And so working with the facilities team and working with the office at Cedar Trails, the idea was to just give it a freshening, replacing the lights, painting the brick just to brighten the space, clearing out some of the old furnishings and some of the old structures in that opening area, and providing some other places for students and families, parents to sit. The work of the electrical we did on our own. Our team replaced the lighting structures both in the vestibule, but also in the other entryway at area trails. We have done some other things inside the building actually to help brighten that space as well, to enhance the student experience. We did not do the painting internal. We sought out an external vendor to do that work. We had 3 vendors submit pricing for that project. Of the 3 vendors, we went with the lowest price proposal, which actually was the first proposal. So the first one that came in was lower than the other 2 that came in on the days. Our thinking was in the contractor that we went with was Druckenmiller Painting, who is a spouse of one of our employees. Marty and I didn't see it as a conflict of interest because they were the lowest vendor. And so we really didn't think beyond, we looked at policy 6320 around purchasing. So we wanted to make sure that we followed the guidelines there. We knew the number was such that it didn't require board approval, but also from past recommendations from our auditors, we still sought out 3 competitive bids or 3 competitive quotes from vendors, just so we knew we were in the ballpark. But we didn't think, we didn't push our thinking to a conflict of interest because the low bidder got the bid. It wasn't like we went with the middle bidder or the highest bidder. But then in review today, we kind of chewed on it over spring break, and then we were connecting today, and actually as we read through the conflict of interest policy language, we realized that, you know, policy 4110 is super clear, and I didn't consider that. And so I'm self-disclosing. My recommendation is that we take a look at our language around purchasing and actually incorporate that conflict of interest language into that purchasing language. So that way people in the seats long after we're gone have all that information right on one page as they're considering the awarding of contracts or proposals or partnering with vendors. So I just want to make sure that honor any questions that may come from the board table. I appreciate the question that brought this to the table in the first place. It's never easy to admit a mistake, but we all strive to get better each and every day, and this is a great opportunity for us to do better moving forward.
Just a question, that spouse was not involved in the decision-making process of.
Correct, yeah.
And then the other question was, you know, how many employees does the school employ?
Each payroll is slightly different, but roughly 400.
So I think going with the low bidder, I don't know that I would see that. I know you guys reviewed the policy, but when you talk about 400 employees and somebody's spouse or somebody's child that you may or may not know owns a business, becomes pretty difficult. In this case, you do, I guess, or we're aware of it. So I appreciate you bringing it forward, but going with the low bidder, I don't see a concern.
Monty had some good ideas that for some different things that we could maybe incorporate into that policy revision. And if you want to share those.
Yeah, I think for the conflict of interest policy, so the policy is currently anything over $250. So it is a very low threshold. I think the policy should specifically state the superintendent and the finance director are strictly prohibited from having any financial interest with any vendors. Just make that flat out prohibited, but potentially have it under the state threshold. The board grants the superintendent or designee who are excluded, prohibited, but they can approve those conflicts of interest if the spouse is, discloses it. It's all upfront that because conflict of interest can, as long as it's addressed up front, it's allowable. And that individual takes a step back, they're not involved in the decision-making process. You know, but it does need to be addressed up front. So we did do that. The part that we erred on was presenting it to the board for approval.
And there's language in 4110 that gives room for exclusions, but I couldn't in good conscience say that there was any rationale to exclude that work. We should have presented it to you and you should have voted on it for approval. To be in perfect alignment with the policy.
Thank you.
Thank you for the transparency.
Yes. Everybody. And the parent concern was addressed, so that was another good thing in the whole process. All right, so planning, our next meeting is May 12th, right here, same time, same place, and having no more business before the board, we will stand adjourned at 8:21.